Hey guys, and welcome back to Drak Reviews. So the next review that we have is a little bit of a last minute addition. And the reason it is because when I was doing my E3 coverage, the game literally came out on the show floor. So we are going to go ahead and step into Trials of the Blood Dragon. But before I do that, I need to clarify a few things before I give my review. First of all, I have never played an entry in the Far Cry series. Okay, Far Cry is just one of those games that doesn't really appeal to me. And also coupled with that, I didn't play what I'm guessing is Trials' prequel, Far Cry Blood Dragon. With that being said, I did do a little bit of catch up before I played the game just to make sure that I at least knew the story. But I have a feeling that Far Cry Blood Dragon and Trials of the Blood Dragon will probably go well together for it. With that being said, keep your judgments, keep your comments with that in mind. Let's go ahead and get into the story of Trials of the Blood Dragon. The way that I understand it is you are playing the children of Colt, the super secret agent I'm guessing was the main protagonist of, or not guessing, I believe he was the protagonist of Far Cry Blood Dragon. And so at this point you are playing his awesome kids, Slater and Roxanne. And again, I don't know the main gameplay that Blood Dragon tried to offer. I'm guessing it was kind of like an 80s side-scroller kind of thing. This is not that. It's actually with two of the Ubisoft developers coming together with the Blood Cry story as well as the Trials Fusion kind of gameplay. I think that's what it's called, Trials Fusion. So in a lot of cases, there are primarily three kind of control schemes that you're going to deal with throughout it. You're either going to be dealing with a bike segment, so a lot of biking. I don't want to say motocross because I think maybe one of them had a motocross bike, but most of the time it was just like a regular BMX bike. You also do have platforming sections with Roxanne, so those can be interesting. And then also you have rocket pack segments later on in the game. But that's beside the point. So you are playing as Rex Colt's children, who are basically continuing his missions, which is to stop communism. Communism is bad. And therefore, you got to have some interesting dialogue between them, but then we have a shocking revelation while they are completing missions, that Rex Colt is alive, but he's a communist. Which, I'll admit, I thought it was funny. So Rex Colt is like pro-America, and you even get like a prologue in Trials of the Blood Dragon that says, I'm pro-America and pro-capitalism, all that stuff. And then finally the reveal of like, Rex Colt, but you're supposed to be dead, and you're wearing the communist flag. So he basically becomes the villain of the series, and it's up to Slater and Roxanne to bring their father back from the dark side of communism. And so you go on a slew of missions to be able to help get their dad back, or basically thwart the communist plans, but also get their dad back. And in the meantime, they also discover that they have some weird attraction to the beings known as blood dragons, and kind of realize that they may be like half blood dragon themselves. It's a little confusing, but you know what? For a game that's like totally based in the 80s, I'm okay with it. We're fighting communism, for crying out loud. Check your brain at the door. That's the best way that I know how to explain it. This feels like Double Dragon, in plot. Go save your girlfriend kind of thing. Should I go into the end? Yeah, it's been out long enough that people can actually figure this out. So they do rescue their dad in the end. They actually do have to confront him, and they actually bring him back from the dark side and find out that their mother, who they thought was dead, was alive. And it just so happens that she's a blood dragon. And they now get faced with an even worse decision. Originally it was America versus the communists. Now it's Earth versus the blood dragons. Because they are aliens, apparently. Yeah, this feels very 80s to me. So yeah, I really don't have many complaints with the story. In fact, one of the things that I especially liked was eventually you'll get a mission where... Now, this is more of a 90s thing, but I'm okay with it. Where basically you find out that Slater is a fan of Power Rangers, or the Power Rangers equivalent in this universe. And it turns out that the the key to the Blood Dragon Temple I think they need. It was the key to the temple that they needed. Those Power Rangers had. So you have to go kill them. And I love the fact that Slater throughout the entire thing was like, oh man, I'm killing my childhood heroes. I'm like, yes, I love this concept. It's like, and every time you kill one of them, he's like, oh man, that was my favorite one. So I'll admit the story actually had me hooked from start to finish, just because of how outlandish and how silly it was. So yeah, I think I marked it off a little bit just because of the fact that I do think you need to play Blood Dragon or Far Cry Blood Dragon to be able to completely understand it, but it's not necessarily a big mark off of it. Let's go ahead and get into the visuals, and it's a pretty game. I've got to admit. Again, I didn't play Blood Dragon, but I loved all of the 80s glory that was going off in it. I loved the fact that the levels were always so bright and vibrant and colorful. And I think very rarely went into the dark side where it's just nothing but browns and grays. And that was like a distant planet, or what's a distant planet? It was probably like the moon or something like that. Because you do go into space eventually to take on an alien invasion. And so at that point, that's pretty much the only times when the colors went really, really dull and drab. And I was okay with that. I mean, for crying out loud, there's an episode where I think Roxanne goes to hell. And so it's nothing but reds, but it's still enjoyable because why on earth is she in hell? It makes no sense for her to be in hell. So yeah, the visuals, I maybe took off a little bit just because there were a couple of times where the character models didn't really like, a lot of the game is kind of ragdoll physicsy. And so at that point, the models do kind of act weird, not just when they die, but also like when they're on the bike kind of thing. So that was kind of like, I saw joints bending the ways they shouldn't, which kind of took me out of the experience, but overall, not a bad mark as far as I'm concerned, for Blood Dragon. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay. So like I said, the gameplay is part kind of Tony Hawk or Dave Mirra BMX kind of segments. You have rocket pack segments, and then you also have some platforming segments with Roxanne, which I primarily don't have too many problems with. However, the one thing that got annoying to me very quickly is the ragdoll physics of some of the puzzles that you had to solve. So in some cases, you actually have to use unique mechanics to help you get across the stage. And there were a lot of times where I actually incurred a lot of deaths. And granted, the developer actually came out and said, you're going to die a lot in this game, and that's fine. But there were a lot of times where I felt like it was a cheap death, where in order to be able to get past this segment, I had to do it this one specific way that I didn't know how to do. And so when the stars aligned and I actually got it done, I didn't feel any satisfaction by the end of it, because it was just like, okay, whatever. I really wished I felt that this was more rewarding, but it just feels like I got through by sheer luck. And there are a lot of levels that feel like the only reason you got past them was because of sheer luck. So I did mark it down a little bit just because of the ragdoll physics and also some of the puzzles that you actually have to go through, but not in a big way. It's still enjoyable, when you haven't hit your 30th death or something like that. And yeah, I did hit that level of death a couple of times. I don't normally play these kinds of games, but I did like the callback to things like Tony Hawk and the way that those segments played. And I also like the classic kind of platformer elements as well. The rocket pack segments can die in a fire as far as I'm concerned, but at least I got through them. Moving on into the audio, and I gotta say that the music was awesome. It felt very, very 80s, but really the part that I want to compliment the most here was the voice cast. I tried to look around to get exact actors to be able to give them the praise, but the guy who plays I think he's actually called Sergeant Slaughter. No, it's like a drill sergeant character. The guy who plays the drill sergeant, Rex Colt, Slater, Roxanne, even the mom, all did really, really well. I mean, for crying out loud, we're talking about how blood dragons have existed since the beginning of time, and they're an alien species, and now we're going to take over the Earth because we don't like how you treat us, and you have to side with me, your mother, or you have to side with the Earth. And saying that all with a straight face. It really worked for it. And Slater and Roxanne are really the point that sell this, because they act like kids from the 80s who are seeing all of this crap unfold around them. It's like, really? This is happening? Yeah, this is happening. Kind of thing. A lot of people, I think, criticize Slater and Roxanne's kind of interaction with the world. I thought it was worthwhile, because it literally is like two teens who are secret agents who are dealing with communism on a regular, or fighting off communism on a regular basis. When left hooks are thrown at them, they're just like, okay, yeah, this is just another day. I like that concept, and so I would like to applaud the Trials of the Blood Dragon cast. They did a really good job with the material that was handed to them. And then let's go ahead and go into the replay value and the presentation. Replay value, there is plenty of it. Frankly, there are achievements to get. You can replay the levels just to get better scores. I actually think that a lot of people who appreciate Tony Hawk-esque games would love these games, just because they would replay those levels over and over and over again. And even the 80s-like story, the 80s-like effects and things like that makes me want to go play it again, like when I'm off on a really silly mood kind of thing. So yeah, I believe that there's actually plenty of replay value, and not in the boring sense. You know, even completionists would have no problem playing through this game just to get all the highest achievements. And then finally, for presentation, does it come together? Yeah, it does. Surprisingly enough, I mean, is it the greatest game ever? Well, I don't even know if I can judge it based off of a game, because it's kind of more of a DLC kind of thing. It's very short when you look at the overall time it takes to complete it. But yeah, it does come together. The audio, the visuals, the gameplay, they all do come together to give you a good experience, although frustrating. So at that point, I'm going to give a final score to Trials of the Blood Dragon a 7 out of 10. It is a solid, good game. I don't know if I recommend it for everybody. Again, it really is more catered towards the Tony Hawk crowd as well, like and to the people who like to do games like Happy Wheels, things like that. I think you guys will enjoy this game far more than I ever could. And so at that point, it doesn't appeal to everybody, but it's still a good game, and if you haven't played it, you should at least give it a try. And that's going to go ahead and do it for my review of Trials of the Blood Dragon, and I will see you guys next week for the next review.